we're back live again on the Apple Show. This is a YouTube exclusive. Sometimes we get a lot of views on this app. It's very informal. Most of the time we're eating and talking. Well, everybody seems to be hungry after we do these for some reason or another. Look at Kobe. But anyway, all right, Kobe, you about to ask Cassandra a question. I don't want you to ask it until we back on live. So, all right, go ahead, hit it.
All right. What I was going to ask was, so I learned that it takes on average a woman will leave 7 times before she actually does leave the relationship. So when you left, I wanted to know how many times did you leave before?
Are you talking about mentally or physically leaving? Because you do both. Like you physically leave, which means you talk yourself into, okay, today I am not going back home. This is it. I'm going to just make it with whatever clothes I got on and what's in my bank account. And then you also go through mentally prepare. You mentally leave like 100,000 times probably. And then with the physical leaving, maybe 4 or 5 times, I decided that I was going to leave. The first couple times he actually came to where I was and convinced me that I did not need to leave. The last 2 times, he came to my job because he knew I was going to be there because I hadn't been home and was not planning on going back. So he showed up at my job. And then the last time is when I went to get help from the VA and they involuntarily committed him for 7 days. And that allowed me to make my exit, find somewhere to live, totally relocate myself, do a restraining order, do everything I did in those 7 days. So it just depends on your situation. But yes, 7 to 10 times is a small number compared to really how many times you choose to do that in your head before you really make it out.
And when it came to you keeping, may I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. When it came to you keeping quiet about what was going on, what was your main reason for keeping quiet and not telling anyone? And how long were you in that relationship?
I was in that relationship for 6.5 years. My main reason for keeping quiet was a couple of things. Number one, I was so just, I don't know if you call it embarrassed. Maybe I was embarrassed that I was a smart person and that had done relatively well for myself in my life as a single woman, that I ended up in this type of situation. And here's the thing, Kobe, like I said, you do leave several times. So when the relationship started, he actually moved to Georgia where I was. And it didn't take very long to see that it was what it was. And I allowed him to convince me that things would be better if we went back to where he was from. So isolation is a big part of domestic violence. Them figuring out how they can get you isolated and away from anybody that remotely will support you is a big thing. And then what happened was I convinced myself that if I found a job and I could relocate, then that was God telling me that I needed to give it another chance. So another piece of this situation was spiritual manipulation. And I did see that on Bryant's list that he put up at the end of the show of one of the ways that people go through domestic violence is they tie spiritual things to it. So mine was very astute with the Bible and could figure out a way to quote any scripture and make it be what they needed it to be. So the spiritual piece of it was very deep for me too, because I wanted to be pleasing to God, and God don't like divorce and all this kind of stuff. So I bought into that and I relocated to another state where I then became very isolated. So one of the main reasons was I was embarrassed that I had even gotten that far into it. I relocated behind it and took myself to another state, still thinking I was in love. Another thing was that I honestly was scared. Once I learned, I'm gonna tell you how I found it. One day I was cleaning and there was a certain part of the house that he didn't want me in. But in that particular day, I decided to go in that area and clean. And when I went in there, that's when I found 2 sawed-off shotguns and bullets, ammunition, all of that. And after that, I started digging further, and that's when I discovered all of the artillery that was hidden in the house. But even after that, I still didn't say anything, because then I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen if I say something? You know, guns are everywhere. So what am I going to do? So you get into your head so deep. The crazy thing about it was I was still getting promotions and all kinds of things at my job. I put my energy into the corporate world, because after 5 o'clock I had to live a very different life. And so I became an overachiever at my job, just to put that energy somewhere and take my mind off of what I was going to be facing each day when I got home. So, but it was really out of fear. It was embarrassment. It was fear, and it was I was just afraid. I was scared. Fear has a grip on your mind, it takes a lot of work and prayer and time to release that from you, for you to see past that fear. And I'm gonna tell you something. You know, domestic violence, both people eventually end up in rage. Both people end up in rage. And in my situation, I can say this now because it won't incriminate myself. It's been over 7 years. But I was standing at the sink. I had gotten into rage, and my rage was silent. Like, I knew how to be completely angry on 100, but never show it on the outside, which is where you are dangerous at that point, because people have no idea the level of mental rage you're going through in domestic violence. And I did a little research, and I had discovered that Comet and Kool-Aid slowly shut your organs down, but you could, but it was something that the person would drink, they would never know it, and then slowly they would be demised. So that's that unhealthy love we're talking about. And literally, and I know this may sound really spiritual to some people, but I was there at that sink trying to make up my mind how I was going to get out of it. And I was going to do that Comet and Kool-Aid. And I literally heard a voice tell me, "You are too good for this. Pour it out. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison if you do this." And I decided that it wasn't worth me doing it. And that was the day that I really decided I have got to leave this situation.
That is terrible. I mean, just absolutely terrible. And like I said, it bothers me that it had got to that point and we didn't know.
But like I said, it's one of those things where the person that's in it, you love your family, and you do not want to see anything happen to your family. You would rather something happen to you than to your family. And that's just what it was. I remember when y'all came to visit me that one time, and we had gotten a new house. And the other thing that was my situation, there was a lot of financial manipulation involved. And I remember when my family came to see me, I put on a good face long enough that they were there. And as soon as they pulled out of the yard, I collapsed on the floor, because I was thinking this was my opportunity to leave with them, and I didn't take it.
I mean, cause for real, all you had to do was open your mouth, and you would have left when I left. That would have been the end of that.
I wanted to ask you, anytime through that, did you ever blame yourself?
Oh yeah, that's where the embarrassment came in from, because I was like, maybe because a lot of times they would say things to you that that aren't you, but in part of them trying to break you down mentally, they'll say things to you like, "You can't be trusted. Why can't I can't even trust you," and things like that. They'll tell you nobody else is gonna want to be with you, all those kinds of things. So it started to make me second guess who I was, and I was never a person that struggled with self-esteem or confidence or anything like that. But after you hear that every day, you start to question whether or not you can be trusted, or are you not a trustworthy woman, or are you not a good woman? Is it true that they the only person that's gonna ever love me? All those kinds of things, and those things become strongholds that keep you unsure of yourself. If you can even, I had made it for years as a thing on my own, always had what I needed, but I found myself questioning if I would even be able to make it again by myself. And so yes, you do end up blaming yourself for it, and you do end up thinking that no, I don't even know if I can make it without this person. And it's the most toxic thing. Now looking back on it, that I can even fathom. But yes, you do absolutely blame yourself.
Mm. Mm.
I read that they are master manipulators, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
a form of, it's brainwashing, which
Oh
is
yeah.
why, like in the documentary, there was a woman who said she was mad. She gets mad when people say, "Why didn't you just leave?" And they say that question as if it's just something simple and so easy to do. But for those who haven't been through it or lived through it, there are, as you know, there are more layers to it than just leaving. A lot of
Yeah.
times there are kids involved. As you said, there was finances. If they're the provider or the one who makes all the money, if like how Ilya, I think Ilya brought it up. He was saying that, or Steve, they were saying the love part. Um, in the documentary, they were talking about how not every day is an abusive day. There are still sometimes good moments, and they use that. Um, you know, today was a good day, but tomorrow, then they back beating on them or talking down to them and all this crazy stuff. But not every day is a bad day. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it happens that way. But the
And those
manipulation
good
part,
days, they take advantage of those good days to see. You see, I'm not a bad person. You just always trigger me. Things that you do always make me just want to go off on. They use that as the opportunity to justify the bad days.
yeah.
Mm. Mm. It's a sore subject. And I guess because of because of the conversation we had over the holidays, when that happened last week, it just hit me way differently than it probably would have hit me before. I probably would have heard and probably would have been well, I won't say nonchalant, but because I didn't know him, it probably wouldn't have affected me as much as it did, and it been bothering me for the last couple of weeks. Uh, I was in a situation last weekend. One of the reasons that we didn't do the show last weekend because I was going through something mentally. I mean, I just really was having a bad weekend. It was just terrible, and it kind of started with that during the week, and it just progressed. Over the week, going that I suffer from anxiety. And sometimes it'll get the best of me, and I just have to kind of shut down and restart sometimes. I know that probably ain't the best way of handling it, but right now that's the only way I kind of know how to deal with it. So with that situation going on, it really did make me feel like, uh, the state of the world and the state of Columbus in general, because where we live at right now, man, the murder rate is ridiculous. It's like every 2 or 3 days, somebody's getting murdered here in Columbus. It just don't make no sense. And it's always young black guys just doing craziness. And I keep thinking, I want to do this show and I want to make a difference. And so I got to talk about some of the stuff that's going on. If it affected me that bad and made me that sad, then we need to discuss it. But I wasn't in the right frame of mind to be able to do that last weekend. I just couldn't. I couldn't.
Well,
So
well, that's one of the things here in Montgomery. And whenever you look at Tuskegee, Montgomery, and Selma, a few weeks ago, they had a domestic violence situation to where dude went in the house and burnt up the mama and three of the kids in the house. Just literally burned them up in the house. And then you think about it of how back in the days where Dr. Martin Luther King marched for the civil rights movements and did everything and sacrificed his life for us to be free. But here we are in the same city he marched in, killing one another. And that's a sad situation right there. It's really sad state of mind over there.
Yeah, it's like that. Albany is going through the same thing. Here in Albany, it's the same thing. Here is shootings. They are shooting each other every day shooting each other. So it is definitely a situation that needs to be talked about and dealt with and addressed. And I'm glad that you all invited me to be a part of this, to have this talk, because it does help to talk about it and put it out there so that people understand they're not the first and not the last to go through something like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think it's important that, like I said, if we're going to have a men's club and we're going to hold men accountable and we're going to try to teach these younger men how to be men, then I thought it was very important that, this is something that we definitely need to talk about, and we need to talk about it who have been through it, so we can kind of understand that sometimes it ain't so easy to leave. Sometimes you are being protected yourself. When that person in your family ain't telling you what's going on, they trying to protect you. You know what I'm saying? And that was something I had to deal with, because I understand now that that's what you was trying to do. You were trying to keep me from getting in trouble, getting shot, getting in a situation that, would have called you more had I not been, alive, or something been going, something had to went awry. You know what I'm saying? So I understand completely where you coming from with that now. Like I said, I didn't then, but I do now. But I definitely believe that we need to have a conversation about this, and we might need to have another one, because we need to be vigilant about checking one another when it comes to manhood. And when we see other dudes doing stuff that just ain't right, we got to pull bro to the side and say, hey, bro, look, this just ain't becoming of manhood what you doing right now. And I think if more men would do that with their friends and stuff, and just check them. If you a real friend, talk to them. Let them know, hey man, that ain't cool. What you doing ain't right. And because if me and Illa has always had this thing where if I'm your friend and I see you doing something or going down a pathway that I know ain't gonna benefit you, what kind of friend would I be if I don't say nothing? So that's one of my big pet peeve of mine right now, is how men can let other men act the fool and don't say nothing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, dude. We got to be better than this.
At one point, at what point, when I guess at what point did it really start? The domestic violence really start, or you started paying attention to the domestic violence?
Is it with me?
Yeah.
Okay. With me, it started verbally. And I've always been a relatively opinionated person. So with me, it started with verbal first. And then once a person verbally gets here, it's not hard to get here or anywhere else. So as men, I would say that knowing the importance of guarding your words and knowing how to communicate in a way that is not manipulative is very important, because we as women, if we love you and we feel like you are the person we want to love, then your words become very important to us. And we all know that words have power. And as a man, you have the ability to influence that woman for positive or negative if she loves you. So I would say that it started with me verbally. And then after the verbal, it was very easy for him to manipulate other ways, because at that point, I had succumbed to the verbal breakdown per se. And yeah.
I'm gonna ask that. We'll get everybody to pause it. Never mind. It must have been Illy. Okay. I was getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so with me, it started verbal. And I didn't really even know that I was being verbally abused. I found out I was being verbally abused when one day somebody was talking to me and I overreacted because they became very passionate about what we were talking about at work. And I found myself getting very defensive and putting on that stance like I was getting ready to have to defend myself. Illy, can you go back on mute again? I think it's yours that's vibrating like that. But it was at that moment that I realized that something in my reaction is not right. And why do I feel like I have to be on the defense like this so quickly? And it was when I started having those thoughts is when I started realizing that something ain't right. And then I started wanting to not go home. So it was like I would find a reason or excuse to have to go somewhere after work because you just dread walking in the door. And it goes from there to once they feel like you are waking up or getting woke, as the streets say, then that's when the physical starts. Because at that point, they feel like you've, okay, thinking for yourself again. And I got to get you back under control. So it's very real. So I would say it starts always with verbal. And they use the word love to manipulate you. They use the good days to manipulate you. And then before you know it, you are in way deeper than you thought you were.
One of the things that I did find out from a man's perspective is that so many times a man will view a woman that they're abusing as a piece of property. Instead of someone that love, they view them as a piece of property, meaning that they will protect their property just like a car. They will protect their property, but at the same time, they can abuse their own property at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the eye openers that I found out about a man and how they look at them as just a piece of property. And I think that's so wrong.
Oh yeah, if we were out and about and somebody gave me a compliment, it would be a fight because he felt like somebody else is paying attention to this my woman kind of thing. But then I would get home and you would treat me like I wasn't that same person you wanted to fight over in the streets. So it's very real. What you're saying is very real.
Question.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just about. I don't think I was finna say was traditionally, even in the Bible days, they treated women as property. They was servants, and they were things to have for beauty and bearing children, and whatever they needed them for. They were just property. They wasn't necessarily a helpmate or an equal partner. They didn't even view them that way. They used to trade women around like they trade slaves. So. It didn't just start. It's been since Bible days that women have been treated like that.
I was gonna ask, did you know his family history? Did he grow up seeing that type of abuse in his home? And I was gonna ask you, did he have a relationship with his mother, and how was he with her?
So he had a relationship. He had a very interesting relationship with his mother. Yeah, it was interesting. And his mom and dad had a very weird relationship as well. Verbally abusive for sure. And his mom and dad weren't even together anymore, but it was still a very toxic verbally. They found reasons to be around each other so that they can fight.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So they knew they didn't get along, but they would always be family dinner so that somebody could end up fighting. I mean, it was just toxic. So yeah, it definitely was in his blood.
Well, you
Most
know
of
what
the
was funny? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, most of the abusers from the documentary, they all grew up in households where they saw it,
Yeah.
and it's a cyclistic. That's another word. It's a cycle, though.
Yeah, it's for sure it's a cycle.
I was just about to say they whole family to me was a little weird, because they all knew, how he was, but instead of them warning her or saying to her, "Hey, look, this ain't what you want," you know what I'm saying? They were just looking at her going, "Ooh, well, she'll find out sooner or later," that kind of stuff. Like, come on, man, y'all know this cat was trash when y'all, when he got married. So why wouldn't you warn her? But anyway,
For them, it's normal.
It's normal for them. And
It's
I'll just
normal
say
for them.
that they have welcomed 3 wives after me. I think he's in wife number 5 now.
for real,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you didn't know that. He's on wife number 5 now. So I was wife number 2. So he on number 5 now. And
Wow.
it is a cycle. It's going to continue on.
Wow.
And one of the things that I look at is that you can't have somebody to come in and make you over when you're grown.
Yeah, well,
That's right.
It's hard to change grown folk behavior. Well, you can't change it; they got to. I've learned that over the years. You cannot make anybody do anything that they don't want to do themselves. You can't change. Can't no. Like these women sometimes be marrying guys. I'm gonna change him. You're not finna change no grown man unless he's trying to change himself. You ain't gonna have nothing to do with it. So that's a whole nother story. A whole nother story right there.
And you got to think also, mental illness is a monster. Mental illness is a monster. And when people are mentally ill and with a person that is not mentally ill, that other person tries to figure out why are they doing the things they do and why are they saying the things they say, and can never get the answer because you're not mentally ill. So you will never get the right answer. I mean, I did everything from get involved with support groups and this and that. And I did so many things trying to figure out, like, maybe if I could help fix him, it'll get better. No, it doesn't get better.
Well, y'all, this has been a very interesting. Kobe, you had something to say? I'm sorry.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I just wanted to point out the fact. I just want to point out the fact that Cassandra was a successful woman on her own and already had her own thing going for herself, and that domestic violence, teen dating violence, it doesn't discriminate when it happens. It doesn't discriminate between race, religion, creed, color, class, all of that. It can happen to any and everybody. And I wanted to ask her, how did you heal? Because I look at you now and I would never know that you went through what you went through. You are radiantly beautiful and you are confidently strong right now. So it's like, how did you get over to the other side for the people we have listening?
Well, it was a couple of things. First and foremost, it was my relationship with God, for sure. Had I not had my prayer life and my ability to just talk to God when I couldn't talk to anybody else, that definitely carried me through. And then in my everyday life, I did go seek help. I went to counseling. And she helped me understand a couple of things, which was to not blame myself for trying to love somebody who couldn't love me back. She also helped me to understand that I had daddy issues that I never resolved, and me looking for love from a male is part of what allowed me to enter into this abusive situation, because I so desperately wanted that from somebody. And then she also helped me figure out how to regain my self-esteem and self-confidence back. So it takes time. Definitely go see a professional. I think anybody that's been through domestic violence needs to talk with somebody who they can just be completely honest and open, that has no attachment to their family or anybody else. So I do encourage counseling. I think it is an amazing thing when you have a good counselor who can talk with you about it. And then lastly, I decided that I was going to be an advocate. I started speaking and talking to other people about my experiences. I when I see I recognize the triggers, and when I see somebody with that behavior, I do my very best to try to talk to them and give back, all of those things, because it's therapeutic to help someone that's been where you've been, and it keeps you humble, to know that, but by the grace of God, I could have been that person at Family Dollar. But by the grace of God, my folks could have been at my graveside. When you live with somebody with 8 guns that consistently let you know they got them, and you wake up and they got them in their lap looking at you and all those kinds of things, is by the grace of God that was not me. So it has been a road to recovery. I made some other mistakes along the way. I wasn't completely healed, and I got involved with somebody else who was just as toxic as the first person. The only thing was he had a drug problem, so it didn't last long because I definitely wasn't going there. So ladies, it get healed of this before you try it again, because you'll end up in repeating, like Kobe said, the cycle if you don't completely take time to heal yourself.
Right.
Wanna also ask you, it's like when a person is beaten down and they are abused and they're not confident in themselves. And I know it's so easy to say seek counsel, but sometimes it's hard for people to even reach out for counseling. Yeah. How do you overcome that curve?
You gotta understand that counseling does not mean that you're crazy. For such a long time, going to counseling had a stigma of people think you crazy, so you need help. And you go to a counselor and sit on the couch. They call it the couch. You got to go lay on the couch and all those kinds of things. But with time, I was able to accept the fact that, I've been through a traumatic experience that I don't ever know if I'm going to fully recover from this. So I was able to just, at the place where I worked at the time, they had a EAP program for employees. And I started there, and I went to my employer EAP program, Employee Assistance Program. And that particular person there said, I think I want to refer you out to someone that has no connection with us as a job. Nobody is going to know. You can go see them in a very confidential location, and they can talk with you. So it was through that I was able to find someone who could identify with me and could help walk me through my situation. So it takes time. You gotta come to that realization that, hey, it's trauma. You have PTSD after you have been through domestic violence, and you have to overcome those triggers. It was a long time before I would let anybody, if anybody came toward me real quick, I would always brace myself, all kinds of stuff. So you got to get over all those things. And it takes time and help to be able to do that and be healthy afterwards. I mean, a lot of people don't seek help, and they're not healthy though after that. So you really need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We're gonna go ahead and end this right here. The conversation is great, and I hate to just cut it off right here. I'm sorry, I was reading, my bad. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and cut it off right here though. If need be, we can definitely do another episode about this. It might bear to have a second episode about this and bring some other women in that have dealt with this, and maybe even some men who have dealt with this before. Because I'm sure there are some men out there who have suffered from domestic violence themselves. But we got to get past that stigmatism of not want to talk about it. But I mean, like I said, I've known dudes that had grease thrown on them. Hot grease, grits, melted wax. I mean, it's just, I know some dudes that have been through some stuff. So, it's never just a one-way street when it comes to domestic violence. It does go both ways sometimes. So, well, but with that being said, once again, we are still live on YouTube. And I just want to say, if you know anybody who is involved in any kind of domestic violence, or you're a victim of domestic violence yourself, please don't hesitate to call the hotline 1-800-799-SAFE, and that's 1-800-799-7233. And we're gonna be out. We'll talk with y'all next weekend. Peace.
Peace.
All right.